These are all good things. I got one for you, Tim. For example, very fine people, hoax or not hoax. You work at the Bulwark. They're very, great people of journalism. Very fine people, hoax or not hoax.
wrote a very extensive story on the very
hoax
fine
or not
people
hoax.
thing.
Yes,
and I think if
hoax
you
or not hoax. One word.
No, it's not. It's obviously not a hoax. If you want me to explain why, people can go read Robert Jasinski's story. He was there. He's in Charlottesville. He's a conservative. He explains why it's not a hoax. You can go read that if you want, or I can explain it. Whatever you want, Dave.
Delusional.
Yeah, you can explain it. Donald Trump, for 10 years, Joe Biden literally ran his initial campaign for presidency saying Donald Trump said very fine people on both sides. What was the line that Donald Trump said next, Tim?
Right after very fine people on both sides?
Yeah, what did he say after that?
I don't remember what the exact sentence was right after.
Tim Miller looks like an absolute fool on the Piers Morgan podcast. Tim Miller was joined by this Democrat congressman, this Brandon dude over here, and Dave Rubin, where he completely humiliates himself, obviously also with the help of Dave Rubin, who jumps in to humiliate him as well. Let's see how this Piers Morgan panel goes down.
I think it needs to stop. This needs to be accepted for what it was, a tremendous error which could have had tremendously serious consequences. And if it was a senior military person who'd done it, they'd already be gone.
For sure. Look, to that senior military example, look, Pete Hegseth has already fired several generals. He's fired several people throughout the Department of Defense. So is Elon Musk as part of the Doge process. Imagine, we're doing the hypotheticals. What about Biden? I think the more apt hypothetical is imagine if, a low-level general who was involved in this operation had texted the exact time and location of a military strike to an anti-Trump journalist. Now, and imagine if that general is one of these woke generals that they're going after. Maybe it's a black general or a woman. Imagine what Pete Hegseth would be saying today. Imagine what Dave Rubin would be saying today. We know what these guys would be saying. These woke generals, they're the deep state. We need a court martial. We need an investigation. This person needs to be fired. I think we can all agree that that is what would be happening today. That person, if they were a two-star black general or female general and they had done this, they would be fired today. I think that's very obvious. And so, look, Pete Hegseth might be a mate of yours, might be a good person. I don't know. I've never met Pete Hegseth. But to me, you read this signal chain, and this looks like it got its way in over his head. And this is not, if General Mattis here, it's impossible to imagine General Mattis texting emojis and all caps pathetic to like a signal group chain, preparing them for when the strikes would be. It's just, it signals to me somebody that's not serious. It's not up for the job. The fact that then on the chain, he says, we have 100% operational security here, and there's someone on the chain he doesn't know. Like you didn't check to make sure you knew everybody on the chain. I think it shows just an unbelievable lack of seriousness. And I think clearly, if this was one of the woke generals that Pete Hegseth doesn't like, they would be fired today, and there would be a DOJ investigation targeting them.
All right.
Yeah, false. Listen, I know everyone's pointing about whataboutisms, both sides when it comes to this signal gate issue. But bottom line is this. If it were the Democrats that had done this, all these Democrats or the people on the left here or NeverTrumper Republicans like Pearl Necklace Tim Miller over here, they wouldn't be calling for anybody to be fired. They would be making excuses after excuses after excuses. So I'm sorry, yeah, it would be nice to, yes, it's always great to be consistent and stuff. And yeah, I do think this was a big blunder. I don't know if Pete Hegseth should be let go or not, but regardless of what I think, bottom line is if this was a Democrat that had done this, there would be no cause on their side to have the person fired. None at all. So listen, if we're going to have someone hold us accountable over here on the Republican side, it sure ain't going to be the Democrats, because they're not going to do that. They're not going to hold themselves accountable for this stuff. I'm not going to listen to their finger wagging at us. They're just not the people I'm going to listen to.
Rubin, a lot to unpack there, but a lot I agree with, I have to say. Look, let's talk about the signal aspect. If they, as you say, and I've seen that report, if they were encouraged to use Signal, and in fact it had been put on a lot apparently of their phones and so on when they came into their positions, so they're allowed to use Signal, which is deemed to be one of the more secure ways of communicating. And you believe, as Pete Hegseth clearly did, that you've only got on there the Secretary of State, the Defense Secretary, the National Security Advisor, and so on. In other words, all the senior members of the cabinet that would be involved, plus one or two hand-picked staffers who are at a very high level. If you assume that's who you're talking to privately, then I'm not too fazed about emojis and stuff like that. You've got to have some presumption, I think, when you're conversing with people at that level, that you presume to be that level, that it will remain private. So I'm not sure I can get too exercised about that part of it. The thing that still exercises me, though, is just that if it hadn't been Jeffrey Goldberg, but had been somebody who wanted to really damage the administration, they really could have done, and you could have seen American planes blown out the sky.
Sure. Look, there's a couple of things going on here. First off, I think your guest in the center, I'm sorry, I don't remember the congressman's name. I think he said it was illegal to use Signal in these chats. Now, again, Ratcliffe, who is the CIA director, is saying, as you just said again, that it was preloaded on their computers and devices. So I don't think that's illegal, but if there's some legal portion of this.
Well, just for the record, it's
you are not
Jake,
allowed
it's
to
Jake,
share
it's Jake
classified material
Auchincloss.
over Signal.
Well, just to introduce you again, Jake, for Dave, it's Jake Auchincloss, who's a Democrat congressman from Massachusetts. So, Jake, you want to respond to him?
Okay, so well, there's some issue as it pertains to whether
you
Signal
cannot
should
share
or shouldn't have
classified
been used.
material
We
over
can all
Signal.
accept that.
Okay, so that's interesting. So, all right, so Congressman, just to be clear, it is illegal to share classified information over Signal. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the military has its own entire network. They have SCIFs inside the homes of every senior military commander. They have SCIFs co-located with the Secretary of Defense precisely so that they are not putting highly classified operational plans on commercial messaging apps. It's illegal, full stop. And Pete Hegseth needs to own that accountability, because if this happened to a corporal or a captain or a general, their career would be over. He shouldn't have this job in the first place, and my goodness, he certainly shouldn't have it now.
Dave, I mean, if it turns out that that is correct, and I don't dispute what the congressman just said, then should Pete Hegseth consider his position? It's a legitimate question which Republicans would be asking of a Democrat.
I don't know. I can only hear the information that you're hearing on the fly the same exact way. If it turns out that they were told you are not allowed to put classified information in a Signal chat, and they went ahead and did it, even though it was preloaded on their computer, and Ratcliffe testified that he was briefed by people at the CIA about using that stuff, well, then there's a secondary problem. And also, it should be reiterated, I don't think anyone here is defending the fact that Mike Waltz apparently let this guy into the chat. So there is some intellectual consistency here. And it's up to Trump. Trump has to decide what he wants to do right now. Does he think this is a big enough scandal and it's worth firing a guy that he just brought into NSA or not?
It's not up to Trump. See, this is the problem with the way Republicans. This is the problem with the way Republicans are acting these days, is they act like a board of advisors.
Democrats just had 4 years of a president with dementia and a completely unqualified cabinet and virtually everyone that had anything to do with it. So tell me more about the Republicans.
I mean, yeah, Dave Rubin correct right there. I mean, listen, the Democrats, I mean, remember they had that one creepy guy? They're freaking freaking the person that's ahead of the whole freaking army, like the whole head of defense or whatever. Wasn't there like a trans woman, like this creepy old fucking guy just wearing a dress and a wig? And that was like our head of defense. I forgot what the official position is called. And then you had that remember that other creepy dude that would wear a dress? He was like this bald, weird, creepy dude that they actually had to let go because it was found that he was like taking women's clothing from their suitcases at airports or something like that. Like really weird and creepy dude. And then there's people that film themselves like fornicating in the government buildings. And then there was like twice when there was like cocaine found in the White House. I mean, I'm just saying that if you want to talk about breaches of security, I mean, there was all kinds going on with the Democrats. And again, I know it's like, well, what about isms? But once again, no one got fired. Well, the one creepy guy that was taking the dresses out of the suitcases, yeah, that guy got let go, which was really surprising because in general, the Democrats didn't fire anybody. So again, you could sit here and have a case that what Pete Hegseth did was a major gaffe. You could even sit here and have a case that he should be let go or he should resign. But let's not sit here and pretend that the Democrats would be saying the same thing if this was a Democrat. Like, yeah, we're sitting here saying those Democrats should have been let go, but no one was let go and no one got punished for anything. So, okay, like if Pete Hegseth doesn't resign or get let go, okay, so what? Business as usual.
The Republicans act like a board of advisors to a CEO as opposed to a separate and co-equal branch of government. They have abdicated their responsibility. Mike Johnson acts like a courtier. John Thune acts like a courtier. They're the ones who confirmed this junior varsity squad of people who are getting out-competed by the Kremlin and out-negotiated, who are being laughed at by the Chinese Communist Party right now as they prepare to blockade Taiwan.
Oh, and then what about that one guy that was dating that Chinese spy? Fang Fang? I mean, what about that? I don't think that guy got let go. So again, I'm sorry, like, even if you sit there and go, but the Democrats have a point. Well, even if they do have a point, I don't really care what they have to say. They don't even hold themselves to this standard.
This is threatening the safety of the American people. These people are not fit for the office that they hold, and all Republicans in Congress can do is shrug their shoulders. It's pathetic.
Did Joe Biden have dementia and we had 4 years of him? Do you think Joe Biden was mentally competent to be president for 4 years? Do you think Joe Biden knew things that he was signing for 4 years?
It's amazing, the whataboutisms. Why
That's
don't
not
you bring up
whataboutism,
Hillary
I'm just
Clinton
asking you a
too?
question.
Do we want to talk about Barack Obama's tan suit as well? You would do anything to not have to talk about the fact that the Secretary of Defense just shared classified war plans.
To be fair,
was Joe Biden mentally capable of being president?
Let's
yes
all
or no?
accept Joe Biden was mentally unfit for office. Let's accept that. As we've been talking,
one of us isn't.
There is a report now that Pete Hegseth and other Trump administration officials are being sued by a government watchdog group for using Signal to discuss the military plans to strike Houthi targets in Yemen. American Oversight alleges in its lawsuit the chat on the unclassified commercial app that mistakenly included the Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, violated federal records law. So that does appear to be something that is now an active lawsuit. Tim Miller, just to bring you back in on this, what do you think should happen? I mean, in terms of accountability, at the moment, there's a sort of Trumpian playbook of them all doubling down, launching a lot of whataboutery attacks back, but nobody wanting to actually say, it's a fair cop, Gov, and I better stand on my sword.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that there should be an actual investigation into this. I don't really have any hope that the Pam Bondi or DOJ or Kash Patel FBI will take this seriously, but I think there should be. And I also think that, sure, Mike Waltz should be accountable for this. And Mike Waltz was on Fox last night. This is crazy, Piers. Mike Waltz was on Fox last night suggesting to Laura Ingraham that Jeffrey Goldberg might have gotten on this Signal chat deliberately. That's what he said. He said it might have been deliberate. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. That's our national security advisor. Like, that's a very serious accusation. He's saying that a magazine editor might have committed illegal espionage. He just doesn't want to actually take the accountability. Because to find out whether or not that was true, you'd need to have a real investigation by DOJ or by a special counsel, and they don't want that because he knows it's him. So he just wants to throw out those lies willy-nilly, and it's kind of an absurd lie, really. Actually, if some boomer magazine editor was able to sneak onto the chat illegally, that I think speaks even more to how incompetent the administration would be, other than the truth.
Well, the thing about that Goldberg guy, so this was all top secret, classified information, right? Didn't the guy post up all the freaking messages? So what's this journalist doing posting up top secret messages that are so top secret? Could be damaging to our country. Well, what's he doing posting them? I mean, doesn't he deserve a little bit of accountability there, too? If this was so dangerous to our country.
Yeah, I found it slightly more disconcerting that his second explanation, because he had quite a few on the Laura Ingraham interview, was that somehow Jeffrey Goldberg's number had been under somebody else's name in his contacts list. And just to remind the viewers watching this guy is the National Security Advisor for the United States of America. The idea that he doesn't know whether everyone's name in his contacts list is attached to the right number and can therefore be communicating with God knows who without any actual knowledge that they are who he thinks they are is frankly terrifying. I mean, when you think about who his contacts may include, I mean, Brandon, can you find any explanation for this that makes any sense? This guy's the #1 security guy in the country.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think it's not a great situation. And I think that the messaging that's been put forward by him at this point has not made people feel terribly confident. But again, at the end of the day, I maintain the fact that it could have been a bad situation. I think at this point it should be investigated. I think that obviously communications are going to be tightened up. They will learn from this experience. I don't think anything like this will ever happen again. Probably shouldn't have happened in the first place. I do agree that from what we know so far, it doesn't seem like any laws were broken by using Signal. I don't think that we have any evidence at this point that the information being discussed could be determined as classified. I don't think that's been definitively determined.
Yeah, but come on, Brandon, come on. Let's come back to planet Earth and reality, right? I literally cannot think of anything that could be deemed more highly classified than openly talking in a group of people on a platform where it is unlawful to talk about classified information. And I take the congressman's word for that. And certainly this lawsuit seems to reinforce that is the case, or they wouldn't be launching it. But the idea that these specific...
I mean, you could launch a lawsuit for anything. That doesn't really mean anything. But again, if this was highly classified information, then why isn't this Goldberg fellow being arrested? Like, if you want investigations or into Pete Hegseth, or if you want him to step down and all this stuff, well, how come this Goldberg dude isn't going to be suffer any consequences for sharing this highly classified information out to the public?
That they were talking about times, weather conditions, type of aircraft being used, who they were attacking. And they're giving a running commentary on how it was going with emojis, punching the air and American flags and so on. The idea that doesn't constitute classified information makes me wonder what on earth you think would. This is before. They were doing this 2 hours before an attack. What could be more classified? I mean, I'm prepared to be educated. I just can't think of anything more highly classified than that information. Can you?
I can appreciate your position, and I can appreciate how passionately.
Well, what's your position?
I can appreciate my position is that I would like to wait for an investigation to determine whether or not this is classified.
There's not going to be an investigation.
I think that it's not. I think that it's not determined. If it were determined, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it right now, and there wouldn't be congressional hearings right now where this is being discussed and determined.
I don't even know. I saw
Tulsi
Gabbard yesterday giving evidence, the Senate, obviously.
She said it wasn't.
She repeatedly said it's not classified information. To which my question would be, well, Tulsi, what is? You know,
but my point is that it is being debated. So you can feel strongly that it is, but the fact of the matter is it's not been determined to be.
How can talking about a war operation 2 hours before it's about to happen not be highly classified? Unless you think that should all be openly discussed.
Well,
Piers,
look,
you're
again,
never going to convince
I'm not defending it.
You're never going to convince.
There is a difference between an airstrike and a war plan.
Well, I think I've got more. To be honest, I think I've got more chance of convincing. I've got more chance of convincing Dave.
Piers, all up in his feelings, all up in his feelings. Well, I don't know what's classified information. Oh my goodness! Or if it's not classified, then I don't know what is. Well, listen. Once again, if this was such highly classified information, then why isn't why isn't any authorities going after Jeff Goldberg for leaking this stuff? You would think, especially since Jeff Goldberg is a anti-Trumper guy who spread a lot of lies about Donald Trump, you would think that this would be if this was highly classified information, that you would think this would be the perfect excuse to go after Jeff Goldberg for leaking this, huh? Don't you think? But maybe if they're not even arresting Jeff Goldberg for leaking this highly classified information that's so classified that it's illegal to send on Signal, maybe, just maybe, there is a chance that maybe this wasn't classified. You know, I'm just saying, guys, come on. Use your heads here.
To have with Brandon. I mean, Dave, let me just bring you back.
It's not going to happen because
hang on. I want to play.
they have their own version of cancel culture. They can't step outside the dear leader's box.
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
Can I talk about why?
This guy
Piers, can I talk about why this matters to the American public, though?
Yeah.
Because this matters to the American public because America used to be known as a country that was no better friend and no worse enemy. And now we're picking fights with Canada and we're appeasing Russia. And the rest of the world doesn't know what kind of a friend we are, and they don't know how seriously to take us as an enemy. And when they see this kind of incompetence, when they see this kind of hypocrisy, when they see this kind of chaos and corruption coming out of the Trump administration, it makes Americans everywhere less safe because it makes our adversaries take us less seriously, and it makes our allies trust us less.
It was a successful operation.
It was a successful operation.
It was a successful operation in spite of the cock-up. Let me bring Dave back.
Yes, more lefty talking points. Lefty, Canada, but Russia. Waste of words by this gentleman right here. Obviously, Democrat congressman. What else would you expect? First of all, this dude looks like he needs a cheeseburger, man. Go down to your local meat market, buy some meat, and buy a cheeseburger. Get off your vegan diet, dude. Get off your soy vegan diet. It is affecting your mental capabilities.
At the same time,
hang on. I want to play a clip.
By the Russians.
Hang on. I want to play
over
a clip.
the Black Sea, which Mike Walls can't even point out to on a map.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just play a clip of Tulsi Gabbard from this, talking about whether she was even on the group.
So, Director Gabbard, did you participate in the group chat with Secretary of Defense and other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans?
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not. Are you denying? Matt, will you answer my question, ma'am? You were not TG on this group chat.
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group chat.
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review by the National Security
Because
Council.
it's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now.
I mean, Dave, I thought that was a very good question, a very good way of skewering Tulsi, because he's basically saying, look, the only reason you wouldn't be prepared to confirm that obviously true fact that you were on the chat, because we've seen the chats, would be if you deemed it classified material, which by definition now we believe would be an unlawful act if they were talking about classified information on Signal. So he kind of trapped her there, didn't he?
Sure. Again, there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, I think we're all in agreement that Walt screwed up by putting this guy in the chat. That's number one. There seems to be a little, for everybody, a little legal confusion around whether Signal can be used or not. The congressman saying it absolutely can't for classified information. Ratcliffe is saying not only was he told it could be, but it was preloaded on their computers. So why did the CIA put it on their computers? I think that's really worth thinking about.
I agree.
If it is illegal to use as a mode of communication, why is it put on their computers?
Well. To be fair, to be fair, Dave. To be fair, on that point, you can use Signal, but the point being, it's illegal to put classified information on the Signal.
Yeah, this is not complicated.
They're not saying you can't use Signal.
That might be true. It would be a little odd that they would preload it onto the CIA director's computer then. But okay, we can put that there.
Which is a perfectly valid question. I agree.
Yeah, as for what Tulsi said there, she's saying there's an investigation, so she's just not going to comment on it right now. I mean, that's what virtually every official does with every hearing we've ever seen. So I'm not going to sit here and throw her under the bus for that.
Do you think, Dave, anyone should be fired?
I think look, Walls made a cataclysmic mistake, right? He's basically admitted it at this point. And just like I said 20 minutes ago, if Trump makes the estimation that stupidity, sheer stupidity, whether it was that he had the wrong name in there or he just, we all have multiple people with the same initials or whatever it might be, whether it was just stupidity, ignorance, not understanding Signal, whatever that might be. If Trump deems that fireable, then so be it. If I was the president right now and I had knew that this group existed, would I probably fire the guy who created this firestorm? The answer is yes, but Trump has to make that estimation.
It's a perfectly reasonable and honest assessment. Thank you. Let's just change tack. I think you'll enjoy.
I mean, absolutely. Listen, if he gets fired, he gets fired. I'm not going to sit here and cry if Mike Waltz or if Pete Hegseth get fired over this stuff. I'm not going to lose any sleep at it over the end of the day. Hopefully, if he does, they replace him with someone that's more competent and not less competent. Yeah, with that said, though, if nothing happens, if he doesn't get fired over this, again, I'm not going to lose sleep either. And I'm definitely not going to listen to these lefties wag their finger at me and going, hey, what's going on here? This is not fair. What about isms? What about isms? Yeah, listen, again, if this were flipped around, if the Democrats had done this, none of these freaking lefties over here, clutching their literal pearl necklaces over here, would be calling for any of them to step down or anything of that nature. So yeah, no, I'm not going to listen to these people hold us to a standard that they don't even hold themselves to.
Is a little tiresome and rings hollow. I also am an elected official, and I know that what is communicated is not what is said, it's what is heard. And what was heard from her statement did strike me as reflecting the governor's disability. And I don't think that's funny. And that's rule number 1A as a politician is if you're going to make fun of somebody, make fun of yourself. That's what's actually going to get laughs. So I don't think it was an acceptable statement.
So they're talking about Jasmine Crockett calling Governor Abbott Hot Wheels because he's in a wheelchair. And so, she called him Hot Wheels. And, listen, personally, I don't really care or whatever. Like, I'm not butthurt about it. I'm not saying, hey, well, you can't call them Hot Wheels. Like, yeah, listen, it's kind of a funny joke, to be honest. So I'm not going to be all outraged about it. The only thing I will say is that, again, the left, they'll wag their fingers at us when we say something that's offensive. They'll flip out and spurg out whenever Trump says something that they deem offensive. But yet the Democrats can kind of say whatever they want, and, they just accept it.
I don't think it's acceptable when Trump mocks people with disabilities. I don't want to see Democratic politicians do it either.
And so her statement was therefore, by definition, from what you said, a pack of lies, right? In which she played the race card, the Trump card, the disabled card. There wasn't a card she didn't try to play in an effort to deny what we'd all heard with our own ears.
Here's what we should do as a country. We got to stop talking to people based on immutable characteristics and start talking to people as Americans, as individuals with inherent worth and dignity. Focus on what unites us. Focus more on the unum than the pluribus, in e pluribus unum.
Jake,
and stop with
you wouldn't
both
even have a
the hard
party
left and the hard right
if the Democrats
baiting
didn't
each
divide
other.
people by race, gender, and sexual orientation. You wouldn't even have a party. Your party wouldn't have a platform. So what are you talking about? And I'd love to sound off, honestly, on this issue of Jasmine Crockett, because this is representative of a really pivotal moment in my life. This is why I left the Democratic Party 7-8 years ago, because I believe the left-wing narrative that Donald Trump had mocked a disabled reporter, which actually turned out to be yet another Democrat Party liberal media lie. We're still talking 8 years later about Donald Trump mocking a disabled reporter, but people want to excuse Jasmine Crockett actually making fun of disabled people when Donald Trump actually wasn't making fun of disabled people. But then, of course,
you're right, Brandon. Donald Trump doesn't make fun of anybody. You're right, man. You nailed it.
Well, let's play the clip. All right, let me play the clip.
No, hang on.
So, of course, Tim Miller over here, the manliest of men, Tim Miller, Donald Trump doesn't make fun of anybody. You're right. Well, that's not what he said. He didn't say Donald Trump doesn't make fun of anybody. He's saying that in that one instance where the lie was spread that Donald Trump was mocking a disabled reporter, that was actually not the case.
Hang on.
If it's so obvious,
I'm going to play the clip.
Please name an example.
Wait, Brandon. Let's play the clip. Let viewers remind themselves of what Trump did, talking about a reporter who does indeed have a disability. Let's watch.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said. This was 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction.
Now, Brandon, Trump did vehemently deny he was mocking the reporter's disability. He has a disability with one of his arms, but he certainly looked like he was, right? And I do remember the Democrats getting very outraged about it. But, to the congressman's point, should we all try and elevate all ships here in the way that we talk about people on a personal level?
Well, hang on, because first of all, you did what the left-wing media does, which is take that moment out of context and assign a false meaning to it. What we haven't talked about is that Donald Trump has done that
just
exact
like January 6th, right, Brandon?
That exact same
January
voice and
6th
that
was
exact
just
same gesture.
it was an episode.
All right.
You were just at the Capitol.
We'll talk about a 4.5-year-old
It was a false narrative out of
January
6th. Yeah, that's why you have a criminal conviction.
Actually, I don't. I'm pardoned
Just
for
a false narrative
for
based
my
on,
nonviolent misdemeanor charge for standing outside of the Capitol shooting video. Yes, I've been pardoned for my Class B misdemeanor charge. But calm down. I'm going to finish my point. Donald Trump has done that exact same voice and that exact same gesture numerous times throughout the years when he was imitating anybody who was flailing because they were caught in a lie. He was making fun of the fact that that reporter who happened to be disabled was flailing because he was caught in a lie. What the left-wing media did was freeze frame a moment from that, put it side by side with that reporter, and say that he was making fun of his disability, which in itself is actually disgusting what the media did. But Donald Trump was not making fun of a disabled reporter. What Jasmine Crockett did was actually make fun of a disabled person and then double down and turn herself into the victim and play the racial identity card instead of apologizing for what she did. And I'd like to know, where's the Democrat Party outrage about this? We're still talking about Donald Trump 8 years ago.
To be fair, when it comes to intellectual honesty, both of the left-wing members of the panel have both said it was wrong, and they both said they don't believe her statement. I'm not sure what more you could expect. I was pleasantly surprised to hear that.
Well, Tim didn't really say it was wrong, and Jake said that it was sort of wrong, but that we need to stop playing identity politics in this country.
Well, Tim said
which
her
is literally
statement
the
was a
platform
load of
of his
nonsense,
entire
which I totally.
party.
He was obviously.
I said her statement was nonsense, and I just want to say, maybe me and Elon Musk agree on something. Let's legalize humor. We're really gonna get 5 middle-aged white guys on here just like tisking people over a little joke. I mean, like honestly, like Jasmine shouldn't have lied about her statement. I appreciate that Congressman Auchincloss says he wouldn't make a statement like that, but this is silly. Isn't the whole point of your guys' platforms that we shouldn't have cancel culture? We shouldn't get so outraged about everything. Like
Nobody's calling for
nobody's calling for
cancellation. Nobody's yelling. We're
performative
responding to a
outrage.
question
It's so
on a
fake.
TV show.
It's so fake.
Well, the trouble, Tim, is that when I have.
Yeah, no one's calling for Jasmine Crockett to be canceled or anything like that. We're pointing out the hypocrisy that, yes, as this dude right here, I believe his name's Brandon, has brought up, is that we're still talking about Donald Trump, things that jokes that he's made or way that he's mocked people 8 years later, or how many years later, we're still talking about that incident because the Democrats made a huge deal about it. Like, oh my God, look how Donald Trump talks about people. Which is part of the reason why people have TDS now. With Jasmine Crockett, again, like I said, I really don't care. In fact, I do think it's kind of funny, but I do want to point out the hypocrisy that the left will outrage over things Donald Trump says and really harp on the mean things that Donald Trump says and even lie about it through the media. At least we're not lying about what Jasmine Crockett said, but the media lied about what Donald Trump said, taking him out of context to make him seem like he makes fun of disabled people. Where Jasmine Crockett, we're not taking anything out of context. We put the whole context out there, and she didn't freaking, and of course, and then she plays the race card, and she doesn't take any responsibility for it. So if you're going to harp on Donald Trump for saying offensive things, you should harp on Jasmine Crockett just as much. Not just saying, yeah, I don't agree with it. Yeah, it was kind of mean. No. Show the same amount of energy and outrage that you showed for Donald Trump to Jasmine Crockett. Then I'll believe that you're really all about your principles of let's not say mean things about each other.
I haven't checked in the immediacy of what you've just said. I haven't got the capacity to do that. But if we went back to when Trump was seen supposedly mocking that reporter, and he denied it, like I said, what did you say at the time? Did you take a view that...
I didn't like that. I didn't like that at the time. It's been 10 long years, Piers. It's been 10 long years.
Tim, my point is, would you like to apologise for being?
We've had a change.
So would you like to apologise?
There's been a change.
All right, but Tim, would you like to be apologise then for overreacting to that? Do you want to lead the way here?
I don't want to apologize. I think that we've had a change in what is acceptable discourse in this country in a way that I probably don't like. I wish we could go back to 2015 where we didn't do this, but we had an entire ecosystem that you guys just profit off of.
When you say
run,
you guys, what do you mean? What do you mean you guys? Hang on. What do you mean you guys?
Tim, you're literally the only person on the panel who's engaged in
Hang on,
Brandon, hang on 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Tim, the only difference, Tim, between you and me is that I'm pretty much in the centre. You're to the left.
I'm in the centre.
Dave's to the right. Right? I don't know what you mean by you guys.
Yeah, Tim Miller's to the centre. Yeah, again, the last time I covered Tim Miller, people were like, oh, he's a Republican. Actually, he's a Republican. Actually, me in the comments saying, actually, he's a Republican. And I was like, what? This dude's a Republican? Tim Miller? Sensitive Tim Miller? Pearl necklace Tim Miller is a Republican? What? So I actually looked into Tim Miller, and again, yeah, he's a never-Trumper Republican. And by the way, if he was at one point a Republican, yeah, he's not anymore. I did a video on him where he was defending the basketball. He was like defending the WNBA, and he was talking about how he watches the WNBA. Yeah, what Republicans are watching the WNBA?
Not all on the same page.
I spent like back in 2015. My point is that in 2015. We Donald Trump, I think we can all agree, changed what was appropriate discourse in this country, and he really crafted it and coarsened it. I think a lot of people are upset about
Tim,
it. And what
you're the
happened
only
as
person
a
on this panel
fallout
who's
is that
engaged in
anybody that
ad
was
hominems
upset
and
about it, there
personal
was a
attacks.
whole media ecosystem that grew, that defended him and defended it, and said that anybody that anybody gets outraged about this is a snowflake, and that we should be allowed to make jokes at all this country. And so the coarsening of our politics
You know what? Donald
has
Trump
happened, and now
taught
we're
people
here,
to start
and I don't get
punching back
outraged over
against
Donald Trump
people
making
like
jokes
you, against
anymore, and I don't
places
get
like The
outraged over
Bulwark
Jasmine
and
Crockett making jokes
NBC.
anymore. Things have changed. Donald Trump changed things. You guys wanted it to change. I mean, you guys in this case, Brandon and Dave, and here we are.
Dave, do you want to respond?
But you're the only person who's engaged in personal attacks
we
on
can
this
speak
panel.
more freely and honestly about things. We have a less censored internet now than we did 10 years ago. Donald Trump uncovered all of this deep state nonsense. He uncovered the collusion with mainstream media and big tech and the government to silence people. These are all good things. I got one for you, Tim. For example, very fine people, hoax or not hoax. You work at the Bulwark. They're very great people with journalism. Very fine people. Hoax or not
wrote
hoax.
a very extensive story on the very
Hoax
fine
or not
people
hoax?
thing.
Yes.
And I think if
Hoax
you
or not
actually
hoax?
go
One word.
back,
One word.
No, it's not. It's obviously not a hoax. If you want me to explain why, people can go read Robert Jasinski's story. He was there. He's in Charlottesville. He's a conservative. He explains why it's not a hoax.
It's
You can
not
go
a
read that if
hoax.
you want, or I could explain it. Whatever you want, Dave.
Delusional.
Yeah, you can explain it. Donald Trump, for 10 years, Joe Biden literally ran his initial campaign for presidency saying Donald Trump said very fine people on both sides. What was the line that Donald Trump said next, Tim?
Right after very fine people on both sides.
Yeah, what did he say
I
after
don't
that?
remember what the exact sentence was right after.
I'm
I
not
think the
talking about
context,
the
though,
white
Dave, that you're missing
supremacists
is
or
what
the
you don't remember
neo-Nazis who should
is
be
that he said
condemned
it-
completely.
is that-
But you work for the Bulwark,
Dave, he
so you
said
are
it
in the
after there were
job of
multiple days
laundering
of
the mainstream
protests,
media
after there were tiki
lies.
torch
And
protests.
now
Like,
we
you're
are
acting
in a
like he just
position
said
to
it in
fight
the
against
one
those
moment.
lies. So you hate independent people
Time out
who
here.
are allowed to actually
I don't hate
tell the
anybody.
truth because they use their own minds instead of being NPCs like you who are
You don't
just
use your own mind. You were
regurgitating
taking
basically
Russian cash,
state-sponsored
dog.
nonsense.
Dude, you were taking Russian money. You're not using your own mind.
What was the name of the
Sorry.
show, Tim? Do you know what you're talking
Oh,
about?
we're not doing that
What
again.
was the
I
name
mean,
of the
there was
show?
an
Let me bring
indictment.
let me
Did you
bring
So of course then they have to go to, but you're taking Russian money, because that's all that Tim Miller has. Tim Miller didn't even remember the next line that Donald Trump said after the very fine people hoax. Good on Dave Rubin, by the way, for pointing that out. After Tim Miller is getting there, it's not a hoax if you read that. It's not a hoax. It's been debunked several times. Several times it's been debunked. Several times Donald Trump has clarified himself. And yet they still run on this lie that he said there are people out there that are freaking burning down Teslas and shit that still believe Donald Trump said the very fine people on both sides lie. It's because of people like Tim Miller and all these other D-bags out there spreading this freaking lie that is making people Trump deranged. It's the brainwashing that these Democrats have done. Look, I know a lot of people don't really care for Dave Rubin. I'm not really a big Dave Rubin fan myself, but I think he actually did a pretty good job here holding his own whenever he was allowed to speak. Tim Miller looking like an absolute fool as usual. I don't know how anyone takes that dude seriously. And then this vegan soy gentleman right here just needs to go out, go to the meat market, go home, make himself a cheeseburger, make himself the steamed ham, and get off of his vegan diet. But what did you guys think about this? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you really enjoyed this. If you like seeing Dave Rubin on Piers Morgan panels, if you like seeing Piers Morgan panels, if you like seeing Tim Miller look like an absolute tard, well, I got some playlists for you on the screen that you could click away and enjoy.